I'm Maya, 28, and I thought I knew my family until my birthday last month revealed a truth so devastating it shattered everything I believed about blood loyalty. What started as hurt feelings over my parents ignoring my birthday for my sister's new puppy quickly spiraled into discovering a family secret that had been hidden for nearly 3 decades. The betrayal ran so deep that by the time I was done, my entire family dynamic had crumbled, relationships were destroyed, and the people who raised me were left facing consequences they never saw coming. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? If you're ready for a story about family betrayal that'll leave your jaw on the floor, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Because this revenge tale is about to get absolutely insane. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The morning of my 28th birthday started like any other day, which should have been my first red flag. No happy birthday text from mom, no early morning call from dad with their off-key singing tradition they'd kept up since I was 5. Instead, my phone buzzed with a group text from my younger sister Emma. Can't wait for you to meet Princess Buttercup. She's the most adorable golden retriever puppy ever. I stared at the message confused. Princess Buttercup. When had Emma gotten a dog? And why was this the first I was hearing about it on my birthday? I drove the 45 minutes to my parents' house in suburban Chicago, expecting the usual birthday fanfare. Mom always went overboard. Homemade red velvet cake, my favorite lasagna, the good china, and way too many presents wrapped in that specific birthday paper she'd been hoarding since the 90 seconds. It was our tradition, sacred and unchanging for 28 years. But when I walked through the front door, the house was in absolute chaos. Emma was on the floor with what appeared to be a tiny golden fur ball, while mom and dad hovered around them with their phones out snapping photos like paparazzi. Maya, Emma squealed without looking up. Come meet Princess Buttercup. Isn't she just the most precious thing you've ever seen? I stood in the doorway waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge that it was my birthday. The silence stretched uncomfortably as I watched my family lose their minds over this 8-week-old puppy. Happy birthday to me, I guess, I finally said, my voice sharper than intended. Mom's head snapped up, her face flushing red. Oh honey, happy birthday, we're just so excited about the puppy. Emma surprised us this morning, but the damage was already done. As the day progressed, it became crystal clear that Princess Buttercup was the star of the show. Every conversation revolved around the puppy. Mom canceled our traditional birthday lunch because the puppy shouldn't be left alone yet. Dad spent the entire afternoon puppy-proofing the house instead of helping with my birthday dinner. Even my birthday cake was forgotten. Mom was too busy Googling puppy nutrition to remember to preheat the oven. The final straw came during what was supposed to be my birthday dinner. We were sitting around the kitchen table eating takeout pizza because cooking was apparently too much effort when there was a puppy to watch, when Emma launched into a detailed explanation of her puppy shopping adventures. And then the breeder said Princess Buttercup was the pick of the litter. She cost $3,000, but Dad said she was worth every penny, right Dad? My fork froze halfway to my mouth. $3,000, Dad nodded proudly, scratching behind the puppy's ears. Best investment we've ever made. Look at that face. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Last month, when I'd asked my parents for help with a down payment on a condo, something I'd been saving for and dreaming about for years, they'd given me a long lecture about fiscal responsibility and how they couldn't possibly spare that kind of money. The amount I'd asked for? $3,000. That's interesting, I said, slowly setting down my fork. Because when I asked for $3,000 for my down payment last month, you said you couldn't afford it. The room went silent, except for the puppy's soft whimpering. Mom and Dad exchanged a look that I'd seen countless times growing up, the same look they gave each other when they were deciding how to handle difficult Maya. That's different, sweetie, Mom said in that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. A puppy is a living creature that needs our love and care. A down payment is just money. Money that would help your daughter achieve a major life goal, I pointed out, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Money that would show you actually support my independence and future. Emma, oblivious to the tension, continued cooing over the puppy. Plus, Princess Buttercup is going to be our family mascot. She'll be in all our holiday photos and family reunions. She's basically our newest family member. Our newest family member. The words hit me like a slap. In one day, a puppy had achieved more enthusiasm, attention, and financial support from my parents than I had in months. Maybe years. Dad sighed heavily. Maya, you're being dramatic. It's just a birthday. There will be other birthdays. But there won't be other puppies like Princess Buttercup, Emma chimed in. She's special. The breeder said she has champion bloodlines. Champion bloodlines. I almost laughed at the irony. Here my family was celebrating a dog's pedigree while completely dismissing their actual daughter's achievements. I had a master's degree in marketing, a successful career at a top Chicago advertising firm, and had been Employee of the Month 3 times this year. But somehow a puppy's bloodlines were more impressive than my actual accomplishments. As I sat there watching my family fawn over a dog while my birthday cake remained unbought, and my birthday dinner consisted of cold pizza, eaten off paper plates, a dangerous thought began forming in my mind. If bloodlines and family loyalty were so important to them, maybe it was time they learned some uncomfortable truths about their own precious family tree. I smiled sweetly and reached over to pet Princess Buttercup. You know what, Emma? You're absolutely right. Bloodlines are incredibly important. In fact, I think our whole family should celebrate our heritage more often. Maybe it's time we all learned more about where we really come from. The puppy licked my hand innocently, having no idea that she'd just triggered a chain of events that would destroy everything my family thought they knew about themselves. The next morning I woke up with a determination I hadn't felt in years. My birthday disaster had been the final straw, but it had also been a wake-up call. If my parents thought bloodlines were so important that they'd spend $3,000 on a puppy's pedigree while denying me the same amount for my future, then maybe it was time to examine our own family bloodlines a little more closely. I'd always noticed things that didn't quite add up. Small inconsistencies in family stories, the way certain relatives seemed to avoid family gatherings, and most importantly, why I looked nothing like anyone else in my family. Emma had Mom's auburn hair and Dad's green eyes, while I had dark brown hair and deep blue eyes that everyone claimed came from some distant relative. It had never bothered me much growing up, but now, sitting in my apartment with Princess Buttercup's $3,000 price tag fresh in my mind, those differences felt more significant. My first stop was my parents' house while they were both at work. I still had a key from college and I knew their routines like clockwork. Dad would be at his accounting firm until 6, and Mom wouldn't be back from her real estate showings until 7 at the earliest. Emma lived across town and was probably at work at the veterinary clinic where she'd just started as a receptionist. I let myself into the house, my heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and determination. Princess Buttercup, who was apparently being left alone despite yesterday's concerns about her well-being, greeted me with enthusiastic tail wagging. The irony wasn't lost on me that the puppy seemed happier to see me than my own family had been on my birthday. I made my way to my parents' bedroom, where I knew they kept important documents in Dad's old filing cabinet. Birth certificates, insurance papers, marriage license, all the paperwork that documented our family's official existence. My hands trembled as I rifled through the folders looking for anything that might explain the nagging feeling that had been growing stronger over the years. It was in the very back behind folders labeled Tax Returns 1995 to 2000 that I found a manila envelope marked Maya, important, in my mother's handwriting. My blood ran cold. Why would there be a folder specifically about me hidden behind old tax documents? Inside the envelope were documents I never expected to see. Adoption papers. Legal forms detailing the transfer of parental rights from someone named Jennifer Martinez to Robert and Linda Harrison, my parents. The child in question, baby girl Martinez, born on my birthday, adopted at 6 weeks old. I sat on my parents' bedroom floor, staring at the papers until the words blurred together. Everything suddenly made sense. The different appearance, the way I sometimes felt like an outsider in my own family, the subtle but persistent feeling that I didn't quite belong. I wasn't their biological daughter. I was adopted and they'd never told me. But that wasn't even the worst part. As I continued reading through the documents, I discovered that my adoption had cost my parents $12,000 in legal fees and expenses. $12,000 they'd been willing to spend to bring me into their family 28 years ago, but $3,000 was apparently too much to invest in my future now. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Not just the fact that they'd hidden my adoption from me, but the realization that they'd valued adding me to their family at $12,000 28 years ago, while Emma's puppy was worth $3,000 today, but my dreams weren't worth a penny. I photographed every document with my phone, my hands shaking with a combination of anger and heartbreak. There were medical records from my birth mother, notes from social workers, and even a letter from Jennifer Martinez explaining why she couldn't keep me. She was 17 alone and wanted me to have a better life with a family who could provide for me. As I was putting the papers back, I found one more document that made my blood boil. It was a financial statement from 1996, the year after my adoption, showing that my parents had received a significant tax credit for adopting me. Not only had they never told me I was adopted, but they'd actually profited from bringing me into their family. I thought about all the times they'd made me feel guilty for costing them money. Dance lessons, college tuition, even my car insurance. Everything had been framed as a financial burden they were graciously accepting. But the truth was, they'd been compensated for adopting me, and now they were treating me like I was less valuable than a dog. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Princess Buttercup missed you today. She kept looking for you after you left yesterday. Dogs have such good instincts about people." I stared at the message, feeling a bitter laugh bubble up in my chest. Dogs have good instincts about people. Emma had no idea how right she was. Princess Buttercup had sensed something yesterday that none of us had acknowledged, that I was different, that I didn't quite belong in the same way everyone else did. But as I sat there surrounded by the evidence of my parents' deception, I realized something else. I might not have their blood, but I'd inherited something much more valuable from my adoptive father: his analytical mind and attention to detail. Dad was an accountant who never missed a single discrepancy in anyone's books. He taught me to be thorough, to follow paper trails, and to always verify the facts. It was time to put those skills to use. If my parents wanted to play games about bloodlines and family loyalty, I was about to show them exactly what happened when someone with Robert Harrison's investigative skills and Jennifer Martinez's determination decided to dig into the truth. They'd hidden my origins from me for 28 years, but that was nothing compared to what I was about to uncover about theirs. Armed with the knowledge of my adoption, I threw myself into research with the intensity of someone who'd just discovered their entire life was built on lies. But instead of confronting my parents immediately, I decided to dig deeper. If they could keep secrets for 28 years, what else were they hiding? I started with my birth mother, Jennifer Martinez. The documents had listed her last known address as Chicago, and with my marketing background, I knew how to use social media and public records to track people down. It took 3 days of searching, but I finally found her on LinkedIn. Jennifer Martinez Chen, now a successful pediatric nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. My hands trembled as I crafted a message to her. "How do you introduce yourself to the woman who gave birth to you but gave you away?" I kept it simple. "Hi Jennifer, I believe you're my birth mother. I was recently adopted by the Harrison family in 1996. I'd love to connect if you're open to it." Her response came within hours. "Maya, I've thought about you every single day for 28 years. I've been hoping you'd reach out. Can we meet?" The next evening I sat across from Jennifer at a quiet coffee shop in downtown Chicago, studying the face that looked so much like my own. She had the same dark hair, the same blue eyes, even the same crooked smile I saw in the mirror every morning. "You're beautiful," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You look exactly like I imagined you would." As we talked, Jennifer painted a picture of my adoption that was completely different from what I'd assumed. She hadn't been some irresponsible teenager who'd gotten pregnant and abandoned me. She'd been 17, yes, but she'd been in an abusive relationship with an older man who'd threatened to hurt both of us if she didn't give me up. The adoption had been her way of protecting me. "The Harrisons seemed so perfect," she said. "They promised they'd tell you about me when you were old enough, that they'd help us stay in touch if you wanted to. Linda even said she'd send me photos and updates every year." My stomach dropped. They never told me I was adopted. And I've never seen any photos or updates. Jennifer's face crumpled. What? But that was part of our agreement. I have all the paperwork, they promised. She pulled out her phone and showed me dozens of emails she'd sent to my parents over the years. Birthday wishes, graduation, congratulations, requests for photos, questions about my health and happiness. Every single email had gone unanswered. I sent them money too, she whispered. Not much because I didn't have much, but I wanted to help with your expenses. Dance lessons, college fund contributions, even money for your car when you turn 16. I've been sending them $200 a month for the past 10 years. I felt the blood drain from my face. $200 a month, sometimes more on special occasions, for your birthday, Christmas, graduation gifts. I figured if I couldn't be there for you, at least I could help financially. The math hit me like a truck. $200 a month for 10 years was $24,000. Add in the special occasion money, and Jennifer had probably sent my parents close to $30,000 meant for me. Money I'd never seen, never even known existed. Did they ever tell you I asked for help with a down payment? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer looked confused. No, but if you need money I can. They said they couldn't afford to help me, I interrupted. $3,000 was too much for them to spare. The look of horror on Jennifer's face mirrored my own feelings. For 28 years my birth mother had been trying to be part of my life and support me financially, while my adoptive parents had been pocketing the money and lying to both of us. But Jennifer had more information that turned my world upside down. Maya, there's something else you need to know about your adoption, she said hesitantly. It wasn't random. Linda is actually my cousin. I stared at her in shock. What, my mother and her mother were sisters? Linda knew about my situation because our families stayed in touch. When I needed to find an adoptive family, she volunteered. She said it would be perfect, because you'd still be part of the family, just raised by someone who could provide better for you. The betrayal cut even deeper. Not only had my parents lied about my adoption, not only had they stolen money meant for me, but they'd also lied about our relationship. Linda wasn't just my adoptive mother, she was my blood relative. My second cousin, to be exact. So Emma and I, we're actually related. I asked, still trying to process everything. Your second cousin's Jennifer confirmed. Which makes this whole situation even worse. Linda knew how much I loved you, how hard it was to give you up. She promised she'd raise you as family, not as some burden. I thought about yesterday's birthday disaster, about how they'd treated Princess Buttercup like family, while making me feel like an unwanted obligation. The puppy they'd spent $3,000 on without hesitation, while claiming they couldn't afford to help their own daughter, their own blood relative. You know what's wild about family secrets? Just when you think you've uncovered the biggest betrayal, you realize you're only scratching the surface. The money, the lies, the hidden family connections. It was all building up to something so much bigger than I could have imagined. But here's where things get really interesting. As I drove home from meeting Jennifer, my phone buzzed with another group text from Emma. Princess Buttercup update. She's already learning to sit. Dad says she's the smartest puppy he's ever seen. I pulled over and typed back. That's amazing. Speaking of smart family members, I've been doing some research into our family tree. Did you know we have relatives we've never met? I'm thinking of planning a big family reunion to bring everyone together. Emma's response was immediate. Oh my God, yes. Mom and Dad would love that. They're always talking about how important family is. I smiled grimly at my phone. Oh, they were about to find out exactly how important family really was. Because Jennifer had given me one more piece of information that was about to change everything. She'd kept every document, every email, every receipt from the money she'd sent. She had proof of everything my parents had done, and she was just as angry as I was about their deception. I want to help you, she'd said as we hugged goodbye. They took my daughter away from me emotionally, and they stole money I sent for you. It's time they faced the consequences. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day for the Harrison family. I spent the entire night planning my approach. This wasn't going to be some emotional outburst. This was going to be a calculated revelation that would expose every lie they'd built their perfect family image on. I invited Jennifer to join me, and together we crafted a strategy that would force my parents to face the truth they'd been hiding for nearly 3 decades. The next evening I called a family meeting under the pretense of discussing Emma's suggestion about a family reunion. I arrived at my parents' house with Jennifer, introducing her simply as a friend who's helping me research our family history. Mom and Dad welcomed Jennifer warmly, completely oblivious to who she actually was. Emma was sprawled on the floor with Princess Buttercup still completely absorbed in her new pet. So I began settling into the living room with my laptop. I've been doing some genealogy research, and I've discovered some fascinating things about our family tree. Dad leaned forward with interest. He'd always been proud of the Harrison family lineage, often bragging about ancestors who'd fought in the Civil War and built successful businesses. I found some interesting financial records too. I continued clicking through the documents I'd prepared. For instance, did you know that in 1996 you received a tax credit of $8,000 for a qualifying adoption? The color drained from Dad's face. Mom's smile faltered. That's not really relevant to Mom started. Oh, but it is, I interrupted smoothly. Because it turns out that adoption was me. Funny how you forgot to mention that part of our family history. Emma's head snapped up from where she was playing with Princess Buttercup. What are you talking about? I'm adopted, Emma. Mom and Dad never bothered to tell me that I'm not actually their biological daughter. The silence in the room was deafening. Emma stared at our parents in shock while Mom and Dad exchanged panicked looks. Maya, we can explain, Dad began. Oh, please do, I said, my voice deadly calm. But first let me introduce you to someone who's been very eager to meet you again. I turned to Jennifer. Mom, Dad, Emma, I'd like you to meet Jennifer Martinez Chen. She's my birth mother, and coincidentally, she's also Mom's cousin. Mom gasped audibly. Jennifer smiled politely and waved. Hi Linda, Jennifer said coolly. It's been a long time. 28 years to be exact. Jennifer, Mom stammered. Let me save you the trouble of coming up with more lies, Jennifer interrupted. Maya knows everything. About how you promised to tell her about me, and never did. About how you promised to keep in touch and send updates and instead ignored every email I sent for nearly 3 decades. Emma looked completely bewildered. I don't understand what's happening. What's happening, Emma, is that our parents have been lying to all of us for years, I explained. But the lies go even deeper than just hiding my adoption. I pulled up the next set of documents on my laptop. Jennifer, would you like to tell them about the money? Jennifer nodded grimly. For the past 10 years I've been sending Linda and Robert $200 every month to help with Maya's expenses. Birthday money, Christmas money, college fund contributions. I've sent nearly $30,000 total. Emma's eyes widened. $30,000. Money I never saw, I added. Money that was meant for my dance lessons, my college expenses, my car, my future. Money they pocketed while telling me they couldn't afford to help with my dreams. Dad finally found his voice. Maya, you don't understand. Actually, Dad, I understand perfectly, I cut him off. You taught me to follow the money trail, remember, so let me share what I found. I clicked to the next document. You received $8,000 in tax credits for adopting me. You've received $30,000 from Jennifer over the past decade. You just spent $3,000 on a puppy without blinking, but you told me you couldn't afford $3,000 for my down payment. I stood up, my anger finally breaking through my calm facade. That means my birth mother, who you've been lying to for 28 years, has paid more to support me than you have. A stranger has shown more investment in my future than the people who raised me. Mom was crying now, but I wasn't finished. And here's the best part, I continued. Emma, did you know that Mom and Jennifer are cousins? That means you and I are actually blood relatives, we're second cousins. So all that talk about family loyalty and bloodlines, it was always bullshit. I am your family blood, but you've treated me like an outsider my entire life while spending 3 times as much on a dog as you were willing to invest in my future. Emma looked like she'd been slapped. Is this true? She asked our parents. Mom nodded miserably. We were going to tell you. When I demanded. When were you going to tell me? After Princess Buttercup graduated from obedience school. after she had puppies of her own, the room erupted in chaos. Emma started crying, overwhelmed by the revelations. Dad tried to justify their actions with weak excuses about protecting me. Mom kept apologizing to Jennifer, while simultaneously trying to minimize their deception. But I wasn't done. I had one more revelation that would shatter everything. "There's something else," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "Jennifer, do you want to tell them about the inheritance?" Jennifer smiled sadly. "My grandmother, Linda's aunt, left a trust fund for any children born into the family. When Maya was born, she became eligible for a $50,000 inheritance that was supposed to be given to her on her 25th birthday." The room went silent again. "That was 3 years ago," I said quietly. "Where's my inheritance, Mom?" Mom's face went white. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. We used it for Emma's veterinary school tuition," Mom whispered. Emma gasped. "You used Maya's inheritance for my school?" And that's when I knew I had them exactly where I wanted them. The aftermath of my revelations was even more explosive than I'd anticipated. Emma immediately stood up from the floor, Princess Buttercup tumbling from her lap as she processed everything she'd just learned. "You stole Maya's inheritance to pay for my school." Emma's voice was shaking with a mixture of anger and guilt. "How could you do that?" Dad tried to take control of the situation, his accountant brain kicking into damage control mode. "Now hold on, everyone needs to calm down. Maya, you're taking this all out of context." "Out of context?" I laughed bitterly. "Dad, let me put this in context for you. You adopted me using money from a tax credit. You've been stealing money sent specifically for me by my birth mother for 10 years. You took my inheritance and gave it to Emma without telling either of us. And then, you had the audacity to tell me you couldn't afford $3,000 to help with my future, while spending the exact same amount on a dog." Jennifer spoke up, her voice steady but angry. "Linda, when we made our agreement, you promised Maya would be treated as your own daughter. But everything I'm hearing tells me you've treated her as less than family while treating an actual animal better." Mom was sobbing now, but her tears only made me angrier. "Don't you dare cry," I snapped. "You don't get to be the victim here. You've been lying to me my entire life, stealing money meant for me and treating me like a financial burden while lavishing attention and resources on everyone else." Emma, to her credit, was horrified by what she'd learned. "Maya, I had no idea about any of this. If I had known the money for my school came from your inheritance, you would have what I asked." Genuinely curious about her response. "I never would have taken it," she said firmly. "That money was yours. And the way they've been treating you." I thought the puppy thing was just excitement about Princess Buttercup, but now I see it was part of a pattern. Princess Buttercup, seemingly sensing the tension in the room, had retreated to her bed in the corner and was watching the drama unfold with confused puppy eyes. Dad made one last attempt to regain control. "Maya, we raised you, we fed you, we clothed you. We invested plenty of money in you over the years, with money that wasn't yours." I shouted. "You invested Jennifer's money in me, and you got tax benefits for adopting me. You literally profited from bringing me into this family, and then you spent my entire life making me feel guilty for costing you anything." I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots I'd taken. "I've documented everything. Every email Jennifer sent that you ignored. Every payment she made that you pocketed. Every lie you told. I have copies of my inheritance documents, proof of the tax credits, everything," Jennifer added quietly. "I've already contacted a lawyer about the inheritance money. Maya is entitled to that $50,000 plus interest plus damages for the emotional distress caused by your deception." Mom's sobs got louder. "We were going to pay it back," when I demanded. "You just spent $3,000 on a puppy." "If you had $3,000 for a dog but not for your daughter's future, when exactly were you planning to pay back the $50,000 you stole?" Emma suddenly stood up, her face flushed with anger. "You know what the worst part is, Maya? You've been the most successful one in this family. You have a great career, you're independent, you're smart and driven. And instead of celebrating you, they've been treating you like you're less important than a pet." She turned to our parents. "I'm ashamed of you both. Maya deserves better than this." Dad tried one more approach. "Emma, Maya is being dramatic. Family situations are complicated." "Stop," Emma cut him off. "Just stop. There's nothing complicated about stealing money from your own daughter and lying to her for 28 years. There's nothing complicated about treating a dog better than you treat your child. I felt a surge of gratitude toward Emma. Despite everything, despite the fact that my inheritance had paid for her education, she was standing up for what was right. Here's what's going to happen, I announced, taking control of the room. You're going to pay back every penny of my inheritance with interest. You're going to pay back every dollar that Jennifer sent for me over the past 10 years. And you're going to do it within 90 days, or I'm filing a lawsuit that will make all of this very public. Maya, we don't have that kind of money, Dad protested. I smiled coldly. Then I guess you'd better figure it out. Sell some assets. Take out a loan. Maybe return the $3,000 puppy and use that money as a start. Emma gasped. You want them to return Princess Buttercup? I want them to face consequences for their choices, I replied. They chose to spend $3,000 on a dog while claiming they couldn't afford to help their daughter. They chose to steal my inheritance and my birth mother's money. Now they get to choose how they're going to make it right. Jennifer stood up. Maya, I think we should go. I believe your parents have a lot to think about and discuss. As we headed toward the door, Emma followed us. Maya, wait. I want you to know that I'm going to help you get your money back. What they did was wrong and I won't be part of covering it up anymore. I hugged my sister, my cousin, and felt a connection with her that I'd never experienced with our parents. Thank you, Emma. That means everything to me. As Jennifer and I walked out of the house where I'd grown up, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. The family I thought I knew was gone forever, but maybe what would emerge from the ashes would be something more honest and real. Behind us, I could hear my parents starting to argue, their voices rising as the full weight of their choices began to settle in. Princess Buttercup was barking, probably confused by all the shouting. The reckoning had begun, but I wasn't done yet. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new condo, the one I'd bought with the settlement money my parents had been forced to pay, when Emma called with an update that made everything feel complete. Maya, you're not going to believe what happened today, she said, her voice bubbling with something between amusement and satisfaction. Try me, I replied, settling into my new couch with a cup of coffee. Princess Buttercup bit Dad. I nearly spit out my coffee. What? She bit him, hard. Drew blood and everything. Apparently he was trying to take away her favorite toy because she'd been chewing on his accounting files and she just snapped. The irony was so perfect, I couldn't help but laugh. So the $3,000 investment with Champion Bloodlines turned out to be aggressive. Oh, it gets better, Emma continued. The vet bills for Dad's hand plus the behavioral training they're going to need for Princess Buttercup are going to cost them about $5,000. And get this. Their homeowner's insurance might not cover it because they didn't disclose that they'd gotten a dog. I shook my head in amazement. Even the universe seemed to be serving up karma at this point. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, family drama, and ultimately justice. True to my word, when my parents couldn't come up with the money they owed within 90 days, I'd filed a lawsuit. The case had been straightforward. They couldn't deny the documentary evidence I'd gathered, and their lawyer had advised them to settle quickly to avoid criminal charges for financial fraud. The settlement had been substantial, $50,000 for my inheritance plus interest over 3 years, $30,000 for the money Jennifer had sent that they'd pocketed, another $20,000 in damages for emotional distress and punitive measures. My parents had been forced to take out a second mortgage on their house and liquidate their retirement savings to pay me back. But the money wasn't even the best part. The best part was watching their carefully constructed image crumble. Word had spread through their social circle about the lawsuit. Mom's real estate career had taken a hit when clients learned about her dishonesty with family members. Dad's accounting practice had lost several major clients who questioned his ethics. Their reputation in the community they'd worked so hard to impress was essentially destroyed. How are they handling everything? I asked Emma. About as well as you'd expect, she replied. Mom keeps trying to paint herself as the victim, telling everyone that you're ungrateful and vindictive. But most people aren't buying it. Aunt Carol told her straight up that she was disgusted by how they treated you. Aunt Carol was Mom's sister, and her opinion carried weight in the family. If even she was turning against my parents, it meant their isolation was complete. And Dad, I asked. Dad's just broken, honestly. I think losing his business reputation hit him harder than losing the money. He keeps saying he was protecting the family finances and making smart investments, but everyone can see it for what it really was. Emma had moved out of my parents' house 2 weeks after our confrontation. She'd gotten her own apartment and had been working extra shifts at the veterinary clinic to pay me back for the portion of my inheritance that had gone to her education. I'd told her it wasn't necessary. She hadn't known where the money came from, but she'd insisted. It's not about the money, she'd said. It's about doing what's right. They stole from you, and I benefited from it. I need to make it right. That moral clarity from Emma had been one of the few bright spots in the whole mess. We'd grown closer over the past few months than we'd ever been bonded by shared outrage over our parents' behavior and a mutual commitment to honesty moving forward. Jennifer had also become a regular part of my life. We had dinner every week and she'd been helping me process 28 years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. It turned out that having a relationship with my birth mother wasn't complicated or awkward. It was healing. You know what's funny, I told Emma. I actually feel grateful for Princess Buttercup. Because she bit Dad, Emma laughed. No, because she was the catalyst that made me finally see the truth about our family. If they hadn't made such a big deal about spending $3,000 on her while claiming they couldn't help me, I might never have started digging into the family finances. I might never have found out about my adoption or the money they were stealing. That's actually really profound, Emma said. A $3,000 puppy brought down their entire house of lies. Speaking of which, what's going to happen to Princess Buttercup? Emma sighed. They're probably going to have to return her to the breeder. Between the vet bills, training costs, and insurance issues, they can't afford to keep her. Plus, after she bit Dad, Mom's scared of her. I felt a pang of sympathy for the puppy. None of this was her fault. Actually, Emma, I have an idea about that. 2 weeks later, I was walking through my new neighborhood with Princess Buttercup on a leash, watching her explore her new environment with enthusiastic tail wags. The breeder had been more than happy to facilitate the transfer when I'd explained the situation and offered to pay full price for her. It turned out that Princess Buttercup wasn't aggressive at all. She'd just been stressed by the constant tension in my parents' house. In a calm, stable environment with consistent training, she was the sweet, intelligent dog she'd always had the potential to be. You know what I've learned from this whole experience? Sometimes the best revenge isn't really revenge at all. It's just living well and refusing to let toxic people dim your light. My parents thought they could treat me as less than family, while claiming blood is thicker than water, but they forgot one important thing. Chosen family can be stronger than blood family, and truth always has a way of surfacing. But I'm curious about your experiences. Have you ever discovered family secrets that changed everything you thought you knew? Have you had to set boundaries with people who claimed to love you but treated you poorly? How do you balance forgiveness with holding people accountable for their actions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I'd love to hear how you've handled family drama in your own lives. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up for yourself and finding justice when family lets you down. Share this with anyone who's ever felt undervalued by the people who should love them most. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we deserve better than we're getting. Thanks for listening to my story and being part of this community where we can share our experiences and support each other through life's most challenging moments. Remember, blood may make you related, but respect and genuine love are what make you family. Here's to building the families we deserve, whether they're the ones we're born into or the ones we choose for ourselves. Until next time, keep standing up for yourselves and never let anyone convince you that you're worth less than a puppy, even one with champion bloodlines.